Chapter 1. By the Providence of Almighty God. The red-coated regimental bands played God Save the King as the victorious British Army marched into the conquered American capital. It was Friday morning, September 26, 1777, and Philadelphia had fallen to the enemy. Continental forces had engaged in valiant and bloody combat to defend the city, but had been unable to stop the British advance. Now the lead regiments of General William Howe's 15,000-man army marched unopposed into Philadelphia on the same cobblestone streets recently abandoned by ragtag American troops. A week earlier, the delegates to the Continental Congress had packed up and left with as much dignity as possible to reassemble first in Lancaster, then farther away in York. Hosts of fearful Philadelphians had also fled, many with more haste than dignity. Today, many teams loaded with furniture and people were flying from Philadelphia, penned an eyewitness. Coaches, chaises, and wagons loaded with fugitives were passing without intermission. Wrote another, "Every face you see looks wild and pale with fear and amazement, and quite overwhelmed with distress." Accompanied by their triumphant tunes, the British Army filed through Philadelphia's streets unopposed, as if on parade, its ranks broken only when a soldier here and there stepped aside to hurriedly gulp a cup of cider offered by loyalist bystanders. Accompanying the red-coated British regulars were 2 battalions of German Hessians, mercenary troops hired by the British government to help suppress the revolution. Although recognized on both sides as well-drilled troops, the Hessians were infamous for their brutality. Now they marched down Philadelphia's streets with the swing and swagger of an invading army. The British Army was experienced and well-equipped, arguably the best military force in the world, and the victorious troops exuded confidence and discipline as they marched through Philadelphia, which was the largest city in America. Upon orders, they kept their battle flags encased and out of sight to avoid needlessly provoking the conquered Philadelphians. Such restraint appeared unnecessary, however. The city's patriots were either gone or were staying indoors, and the files of British troops were met by crowds of cheering loyalists. The American capital appeared thoroughly conquered. 2 weeks earlier, at the Battle of Brandywine, this same British Army had defeated a last-ditch American defense, inflicting almost twice as many casualties as it incurred. Soon afterward, at what would become known as the Paoli Massacre, the British Army had demonstrated its deadly efficiency with a surprise nighttime bayonet assault on sleeping Continental troops near the town of Paoli, Pennsylvania. Scores of surprised and confused American soldiers had fallen to British bayonets. They were running about barefoot and half-clothed, and in the light of their own fires, a Hessian sergeant would later boast. "We killed 300 of the rebels with the bayonet. I stuck them myself like so many pigs, one after another, until the blood ran out of the touch-hole of my musket." Upon his capture of Philadelphia, General Howe established a huge camp at Germantown on the city's outskirts and posted troops in force throughout the city. Artillery batteries were erected on the city's riverfront, and infantry were placed at key points. Among these sites was the Pennsylvania State House, Independence Hall, where little more than a year before, members of America's Continental Congress had passed the Declaration of Independence. Now, one of the delegates' worst fears had become reality. The British had captured the seat of the new national government, including the building and chamber where American independence had been debated and declared. Independence Hall, the new nation's landmark of freedom, would soon become a prison hospital for captured American soldiers. In distant Europe, monarchs and military commanders learned of the capture of the American capital and assumed that the revolution was over. Great Britain, they believed, had won the war. They were wrong. Defying all odds, the American cause would survive. Repeatedly, American forces would suffer battlefield calamities that should have ended the revolution in a British victory. General George Washington's army was repeatedly forced to retreat. Other American armies were defeated and scattered. Principal American seaports and cities fell to the enemy. New York City